All right. We've been talking a lot about listings lately, and I want to keep that momentum going because we're actually, I think, through the discussions and through you guys thinking about it more, we have seen some pretty cool things over the last couple of weeks with listings that were reduced to the proper pricing and have now gone under contract. Okay, about $2.5 million worth of sales like that over the last few weeks. So, but we're going to talk about how to not get in that position. Okay, and one of the things I want to do before we start with the actual training part is want to show you. This is a list of all the homes that have sold, that have closed here in the last 6 months that we were the listing agent for. I'm going to make it small enough to see, which makes it hard enough to read, right? Okay. And these are from worst to best, the original listing price versus the sale price. Now, remind me, didn't you have Fisherman on forever? Yeah. No, 3 days? Now, see, this just worked. I don't know why. She had the thing priced at 116,000 above what it eventually sold for, but somebody thought enough to come and make an offer, right?
It was an investor that called him directly and made an offer, and then he put us involved into the contract.
Did he? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
He accepted it.
So that's kind of a.
Because he wanted to go to Germany. He just wanted to.
That's kind of a, well, the thing is, well, the only constructive criticism I would give you there is you had a buyer who wanted desperately to get out right away. Okay, so one of the things you want to do with a customer at the listing appointment is to make sure that you're coming back out and making things simple. Time and money. That's the balancing act. And I don't know where to put you in that continuum, Mr. Customer. So you need to tell me, are we trying to get an extra 10, 20,000 at the expense of taking extra months before you can go to North Carolina like you plan? Or what are we doing? And let them come to the conclusion, no, we definitely want to try to shoot to get this done within 3 months. Okay, great. Well, that just, my job's never to tell you what to sell the house for, Mr. Customer. My job is to tell you, if you try to get this much, this is what will most likely happen. Okay. So that's part of that. I think this is a guy who would have been very amenable to a Goldilocks type price. What do I mean when I say Goldilocks price? And everybody remember from the other meeting?
Yes, that's great. Pricing lower than what you actually.
A little bit, just a little bit, not Jimmy Ledson. That's big bad wolf shit, you know, that's not Goldilocks. Actually, somebody sold one of Jimmy's houses I saw on the pending list. You poor bastards. Now, here's what I wanted to show you. If you take the ones who didn't need a price drop, okay, and I'm taking anybody who at least got 90% of what their listing price was, but didn't need a price drop, okay, those houses sold in 33 days. The ones that did need a price drop, 106 days, okay? Some of them a lot worse than that, right? Here's one, 300 days. It sold for 75,000 less than it was listed for, and they never did a price drop. They just left it on the market until that what happens there. And I'm not trying to single her out because she was my top listing agent for years and years. But what happens sometimes is almost like a young adult who's getting billing calls from somebody, they don't answer it, like it'll go away. Things don't go away. You want to stay ahead of things. So this is one, if you're doing it right, you're watching, you're thinking about your listings on at least on a weekly basis. Where are we at? Okay, nobody's coming to see this house. Nobody's even given me an indication that they might offer on it. We've got to address the price. Okay. But just to give you some idea, if we get the price right on the front end, it will get us those quicker closes. And you might say, well, I don't want to give away the customer's money just so I can get a fast close and get paid earlier. That's horseshit. Okay? It's, none of you are gonna price the house at 20% below what it's worth to get a quick thing, but pricing it at 3 to 5% under the appraised value right now is a smart thing. In about 3 to 6 months, it's going to be a necessary thing. Because as the market starts to drop, you have to lead the market backwards, right? So anybody, we used a football analogy the other day. If someone's on a go route, you've got to throw the ball far enough down the field that by the time it comes to the ground, that guy's run underneath it to catch it, right? But there's other patterns in football where people go out and then they come back, right? Those are a little tricky because number one, you gotta take a little bit off of the throw so you don't knock the guy over when it gets it. But it's a different kind of league, and we're about to go into a period where we're gonna have to do that. If you run numbers, comps going back 6 months, and it says a house is worth 300,000, in a declining market, it's very likely that house is actually worth 280. Okay. So we want to try to get the price right. All right. And I'll get as involved as you want to. And I've gotten very involved in some of these. I've gone out to some of them and pitched with you guys. I've helped you write up reports. I want to do that. Okay. But the best time to get the price right is from the jump. The first day it shows up on MLS. We kill ourselves to have the pictures right, to write an unbelievable public remarks, to have everything right about the advertising. If the price ain't right, it doesn't matter. Okay? Doesn't matter. You can have the most beautiful full page ad in the New York Times to sell laptop computers. If the price is $3,420, nobody's going to buy it. Okay? If the price ain't right, if the price to benefits don't match up the value proposition, right? If they don't match up, all the advertising in the world isn't gonna. There's an old expression: you can't put lipstick on a pig. Okay, if it ain't right, it doesn't matter how nice the pictures look. All right, now I'm not going to play this whole meeting, but this is a 36-minute.
All of these little,
Really good presentation, exactly my thinking, so you don't have to say, well, that's almost like what Mark wants me to do. It's gonna be what I want you to do. Okay, so you have a link to that, and I would like to see you watch that. So when you get the thing, it's 36 minutes, schedule it. Okay, if it pops up on your calendar, it's time to watch this stupid video that Mark told me I had to watch. And you'd rather watch, The Simpsons, just move it on your Google Calendar the next day. Someday you'll be bored enough to watch it. Okay. This is a PowerPoint I put together covering the same subject matter and drawing heavily on that thing so that you have a kind of a written record of it. But let's go through a couple of the basics, okay? Two key ways to succeed as a listing agent: expectation setting and the preparation fundamentals. Okay. So I would say that it's 80% expectations. We all take for granted when we walk into a listing appointment that the people that we're talking to have any goddamn idea what we do and how this works. Okay. So you have to set expectations. You have to let them know what's coming next. You want to always stay ahead of your customer. You never want your customer to call you and ask you questions. You want to be calling and answering the questions before they ask them. I said, what am I, Kreskin? How am I supposed to answer their question before they even ask them? Because the questions that they call you about are, how come nobody's seen my house in the last 3 weeks? How come I haven't heard from you since Easter Sunday? How come you never got back to me on the notification, on the feedback? How come the only time I ever hear from you is when you want me to drop the price? You don't need to be Kreskin to figure out those questions. you're that 22-year-old hearing the phone ring and it says, the law offices of Jim Davis. No, not answering that. Not paying the bill, but not answering that. It never stops. It never goes away. Okay, so you stay ahead of them. You set expectations. How many times the customer complained about something and in your head you're going, what are you, a moron? That's not what's never supposed to happen. They're not the moron. You never told them, you never set the expectation. Okay. The showing ended an hour ago. Why don't we have feedback yet? Why do you get a question like that? Because you never spent the 35 seconds saying, now, Megan, I need you to know that every time your house is shown, I am going to be brutal about following up with the other agent and trying to get feedback. But I checked it with the legal department into Florida Realtors Association. I am not allowed to use a pistol or anything to threaten them to give it to me. They are on their own as to whether they respond to me, but know for sure that I will be hounding them like a bill collector to get that feedback for you, and you'll have it the second I do, okay? Sometimes I'll have it in 10 minutes. Sometimes it'll take me a day. To be honest with you, sometimes after 10 phone calls and 13 emails and 42 texts, I never get it. Okay, but you just need to know that I'm chasing it like a lunatic, all right? Spend that time with them and then you won't get that call anymore, right? I don't have to call them and ask where the notification, where the feedback is. If the feedback was in, I'd already have it. Build that trust with them, okay? If the first guy who sees it gives me feedback right on the key box thing, I have it in 12 seconds. I'm going to forward that to my customer and tell them, hey, geez, this is kind of a 1 in a million, but I got this in 10 minutes. Now, the next time, do you think they're going to wonder if you forgot them? No. You build that trust as you go along. You build it by putting the bar up and then going over top of it, putting the bar up and going over top of it. You've got to tell them where the hurdles are, though. They're running the course blind. Two keys to successful price reduction: expectation setting and preparation. Expectation setting in the focus of price reduction is, now, Tammy, I'm okay with you trying to go ahead and get max money for the home, okay? We talked about the appraised value probably coming in around 390, and I understand you want to go up to 425. But a couple things. Number one, if there's only a very small sliver of the marketplace that's willing to, quote unquote, overpay for a house. And number two, if they're borrowing money, even if they want to overpay for the house, if they don't have, the extra 30,000 sitting in the bank, they can't. So let's go ahead and try that. And the good news for you is the first day I put this active, it's going to go out to everybody who's expressing interest in this size and shape house in your neighborhood. On Zillow, on MLS, on all of them, they can set that up now. So if that buyer who's just going to fall in love with your place at the exclusion of all others, if he's out there, he's probably going to get an email right as I hit activate. So there's no need in waiting a long time to see if we get that lottery ticket strategy to pay off. So why don't we kind of set in our minds that 30 days after the listing starts, we're going to go ahead and revisit this and see if maybe the best strategy is to come back down to that price I recommended. I forget the number I gave, 399 or whatever. I forget where we were in the 3s or the 4s. That's the setting expectations. Okay. If they know this conversation is coming, they're going to be more receptive. And the preparation is, here's what's sold in that 30 days. Here's the numbers. Here's where they're actually paying about somewhere around 5% below the current market values. That's where the market is. We are 12% above the market. That's a lot of ground to cover. And every time I see one of these guys buying a like kind of quality house, I wonder to myself, what if we were at 399? Might one of those guys have bought our house? You know, did they put 400,000 as their max price, and maybe yours is their dream house and they never saw it? Okay, that's the preparation. We'll pick this up later. Okay, so as we left off, expectations, preparations, okay? Remember those two things, because I don't care how well you're prepped, if you're hitting people with a large price decrease, and you haven't talked to them about it, you haven't got a meeting of the minds, it's a lot tougher. Okay, all right. Planting the seed at the listing signing, sample script. Our goal is to sell it to position price 400,000 or 399, right? I'll be monitoring the market daily and will advise you based on any shifts we see. If we need to make adjustments to attract the right buyer, I'll come to you with all of the data and options so we can make strategic decisions together. And you can use your own words, but you follow what the key components of that are. Okay. Our goal is to sell it for this price, but if that doesn't work, we'll revisit it. Okay. But I'm not going to just come to you going, hey, would you just lower the price? I'm going to give you the data and the information you need to make an intelligent decision. This is a big thing, and this is something that not everybody teaches, but I do. Making small drops in the marketplace, there's a thought process that it's a good idea to drop a $400,000 listing, $485,000 listing to $484,000, because you get more advertising on the internet as a price reduction. Not exactly what you're looking for. I think the negatives far outweigh the positives. And I think that if you're going to try to go to any given seller and do 5 little price decreases at 1% a time, you're not doing yourself any favors. Okay, you're not putting yourself in a great position to renew that listing if it needs to be renewed. So what we talk about is make a jump. Okay, 5% minimum. So if the guy's at 435, don't go down to 425. You recommend 399. Make a real drop. Okay. And you want to, whenever you make a drop like that, you want to almost reintroduce the listing, maybe change around the pictures, put something in the public remarks, price to sell now, whatever. Common hesitations. Well, I gave them, this is common hesitations that agents have to having this conversation with their sellers. And the first one is it's always the one I ask you, what did you recommend? Now that we agree that your $600,000 listing can't possibly sell for more than 500,000, and we need $100,000 drop on this price to attract the right buyer. The first question I always ask you is, what did you recommend to them? Okay. And usually you guys come back at something, usually a tick lower than what you actually did, because you're embarrassed about it. I came in at, forget the numbers I use. I told them 550. I had one recently where the correct pricing was 299. And as soon as we put it to 299, we got an offer. The offer bailed, so did the customer. Somebody else picked it up, put it on for 299, put it under contract in 7 days. But the original price was 379. Okay. So, and when I talked to the person, they said, well, I told them that 350, but only if they did certain repairs, which they didn't do. So the best way to do that is to say, in her case, it could have been 3.25. She could have come in at and said, we can go up to 350 if you get all those repairs done. Better to do it the other way. I mean, better to just come on at 299 now, I think, because I don't think anybody's surprised that the market is falling away. So we just got to come to grips with that and make sure we can communicate that to our customers. If you're gonna sit down with customers, sit down in their homes. Okay, so whenever possible, if they live in their home, it's possible. Meet them, sit at the kitchen table, wherever you sat to do the listing appointment, that's where you're gonna do the price decrease. That's also where you should present offers. Okay, sometimes the tech gets in our way. The convenience factor, it's convenient, but it's not as effective. You want to have this meeting looking them eye to eye. So of course, the bailout position is if the people moved out of the house and they're living in Georgia now, you're going to have to resort to Zoom, but don't do it on the phone. Look them in the eye when you're talking to them. The data points you should have, online listing views and engagement metrics. You can get that, you get, I think, the best information and comparison points you can get on realtor.com, but there's also views and saves on Zillow. You can also get a report from what's a conglomeration of all the syndications? What's the name of that thing? I can't ever think. No, it's one. I'll figure it out and I'll put a link to it in the outline. I can't think of their name, but basically they keep track of your views and stuff. No. They keep track of all your views and detailed views from all of the websites that they syndicate to. But you should have those, and you should have those all the way through the listing. You should be reviewing those on no less than once a week for all your listings. You want to stay ahead of the game here. You don't want to just let things happen. You want to make things happen. If the home has been showed, say, if you're having this meeting 30 days into the listing and the home's been showed 4 times, you should have 4 pieces of feedback or a reasonable excuse as to why you're missing 1, 2, or 3, or 4 of them. Because that's what they want to know. If you're basing this on the information of the feedback of the buying public, what did the buying public actually say? Number of showings compared to the market average, days on the market versus comparable properties, recent sales, and new listings in the neighborhood. You might want to show them a trend that the last 3 comparable homes came on the market at about 6% less than the ones we looked at. That might be part of your reason for making a 5% drop in price, right? And that goes back to the expectations that you already set with them, which was, if we need to make adjustments to attract the right buyers, I'm going to be looking for any shifts that we see in the market. That's the shift. The data that you're bringing there is the data that backs up the market has shifted. Okay. Now it might have shifted and it might just be, I told you your house was worth $399, not $475. It's been a month, only 2 people have shown the house, and we haven't got a hint of an offer. And 3 homes that are the size and shape of yours have gone under contract. That might have bought your house if we were priced right. It's time to go with my original recommendation. That might be part of it. Here are the 3 homes that sold in that range during the time you've been listed, but you have to be able to back it up. This is his particular thought process. I'm more a hands-on person, but I understand the thought process. If you're going to have a lot of documents in your presentation, send them to the sellers a day before so they can review them and be maybe ready. Maybe you show up to give this impassioned speech about how you need to drop down to $399. And maybe the first thing out of their mouth is, we read through all that material and you're right, we need to drop to $399. So I can see the benefit of that. You make a decision that I can make both cases. Prepare clear visual summaries with complex data. How do you do that? If you're the kind of person who's going to put that data together yourself with a pen and paper and a notepad or whatever, write clearly, scan it, throw it into an AI and ask it for a graphic. It'll translate your information to graphics. And if you can't do it, bring it to me. I'll do it for you. But all the information in the world is useless if you cannot communicate it to the seller. If all it is a stack of paper. Because the goal here isn't to get them to reduce the price. The goal is to get them to want to reduce the price. You're not trying to win the argument. You're trying to get them on your side. Okay? Include comparable properties that sold after price adjustments. That's kind of like that part of the outline I was showing you at the beginning of the meeting. And you can see if you go back and look at the last listed price on that chart, realize that those last listed prices are all between probably 0 and 45 days from the time they finally got it down to the right price it went under contract. People aren't stupid. They got all the information in the world. They know what a $400,000 house looks like, and they know what a $500,000 house looks like. And if you're trying to tell them your $400,000 house is worth 500, they're not stupid. Okay? Not stupid enough. The idea again of sending the stuff out early is not dropping a surprise, but again, if you're setting a meeting for we have to rework our marketing strategy and our value proposition, not our price, our value proposition, because it's not stacking up with the competition. And what is the value proposition is what you're offering and how much it costs. Do they balance? Okay. Do they balance? And if they don't balance, is there enough about your product that makes it that much better than the product next door? If there isn't, that's the problem of value proposition. Much nicer than pricing. Again, we talked about your options are face-to-face whenever possible. And again, if they live here, it is possible. If they live in Hernando County, drive to Hernando County. This is an important meeting. You're asking them to trust you and quote unquote give up $30,000 of money that they thought they were going to get. Even though they shouldn't have thought that, they thought that. In their minds, they've already spent that. One of the numbers I just gave, they've already spent that $475,000. And when you tell them you got to get down to $399, they're feeling like you're taking 75 grand out of their equity bank account. They're not. Okay, you're not. Video calls are only for people who live more than 20 miles, 25 miles away from you at a minimum. Okay, if you're listing a $400,000 home that you don't have to pay a referral on, you're looking at making 7 grand, get in the car and drive. Because the home you have listed at 475 is going to cost you nothing but time and money. You're never going to get paid. But at 399, you get paid. So get in the car and drive. Phone call, don't do it. Ever. I mean, the only way I could say you would ever do it by phone is if you had a Luddite who lived out of state. But that should be absolutely your last resort. And even in that case, I would FedEx the documents to them and number the pages. So while you're talking on the phone, you could say, okay, go to page 4. You see that graph there? This is why you need to lower the price or whatever. Starting conversation, 2 key opening questions. Has anything changed with your motivation, timeline, or situation since we last spoke? What does that mean? This is preempting the statement that a lot of sellers make, even though they don't mean it. They say, we're in no hurry. We don't really need to sell. Those are the 2 things, okay? Rafi earlier was talking about how so many of the customers check 6 months to a year as their buying window. And the ones that buy in like a week. Okay, so now you have 2 things. You have something buyers say that's a lie to try to keep you at arm's length. We're not going to give our house away we don't really need to sell. We're in no hurry to sell. Those are all the same thing. They're keeping you at arm's length. It's a negotiating ploy. And the hell of it is they're not negotiating with you. They're negotiating with somebody they'd never met. But in their minds, they're negotiating with you. Now, if you want to kind of take it out of the sales realm and think about it in your normal life, if you were to go to Best Buy to buy a computer right now, what would you do? You'd walk in the store, you'd walk over to the shelves, you'd start reading the tags, seeing the specs, looking at the price tags and whatever. And about 30 seconds after you started looking, some nice guy would walk up and go, "Can I help you?" And then you would lie to him and you would say, "No, I'm just looking." Even though you're not, even though you're going to leave with that store or the computer, you will say the words, "I'm just looking," or "I'm all set," right? We all do it. It's human nature. So you got to get beyond that. Okay. So if you've had that conversation, like I was saying earlier, if you've had that conversation with someone, you said, "Now I have to weigh the pricing structure in our marketing plan based on two things: how much money we can get, how much time it will take. And I've got to have a conversation with you. If I could guarantee you that I had a marketing strategy that would get you $5,000 more dollars, but it would take 9 months to sell your house, would you rather sell it this month for $5,000 less than that, or would you rather wait the 9 months for the $5,000? A little bit of hyperbole. You got to make sure that whatever choice you give them isn't a great one. Because even with 5,000, they might say, if they were of that mindset, they might say, "Well, maybe for 10,000, I'd wait 9 months." We just learned something. Because to be honest with you, the truth of the matter is, most people, when they decide to sell their house, they know exactly where they're going to go when it sells, and they want to do it, or they wouldn't have put their house on the market. So the more you talk about timing, motivation for sales, for selling the house, the more you pin them down on that, the easier it is for you to get them at that Goldilocks pricing to make sure they get one of those buyers as quickly as the market will allow, right? So you've done that. You've gone to your listing appointment on the 1st of September and you agreed to list it at a number that you thought might be a little too high and it was time to bring it down, or the market showed more signs of slippage, or maybe a bunch more homes in their neighborhood just came on the market, whatever that might be. The first thing you want to do is to revisit that conversation and say, "Has anything changed about your motivation or your timeline for this move?" "Well, no, no, no. We still want to be up in North Carolina before Christmas." Okay. Then you can start talking about, "I think we might need to make some adjustments to our strategy, because I can't in good faith promise you that based on what's come on the market since we listed, based on what has pended since we listed and how much for. There's new information out in the marketplace I'd like to review with you because we might need to change our strategy here. I'm not sure the value proposition of your home is matching up with what's out there on the market." Never said price, never said price drop. Another great question to ask for this conversation is, "I'd love to hear your thoughts on how things have gone so far." Now, again, if you're listening to the rest of my listing diatribes that I give you, that conversation should go, "I can tell you're working really hard at it. I just wish there were more showings. I can tell you're trying really hard at it, and there's been a decent amount of showings, but nobody's made an offer. And I know you're following up with them because they know, because you told them, right? But what if you suck? What if they're pissed at you? Wouldn't you want to know now, as opposed to the day before it was time to renew the listing?" Well, to be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed in you, Jill. I really thought you were going to be able to bring a buyer here. Well, again, remember from our conversation, at the beginning, I told you that my primary job, and 95% of my job, is to be your marketing director, is to make sure that all the people who are out there buying homes in our neighborhoods, in neighborhoods like yours, and have a budget equal to the price of your house, are seeing your house. That's my job, to get your house in front of the right people. And to be honest with you, I'm doing that job because, as you said, we're getting a lot of showings. But the reality of Citrus County is, and the reality of the internet real estate conglomerate of Zillow and all these other places is that a vast majority of buyers are brought to you from other realtors. Okay. Now I'm really good, but in the end, I'm one of, 1,300 names in the Citrus County realtors. And about 25% of the homes sold in Citrus County, the buyers are represented by a buyer who doesn't even operate in Citrus County. So part of that I can't really control. But in the end, they know how much the house is, they've seen the house, and whether or not they want to buy the house, kind of up to them. And what I always try to do is I always try to tell people, your house was shown 5 times this month. And I can tell you that none of those 5 realtors pended a transaction in these neighborhoods over the course of the month, which means that whoever came in your house didn't buy your house, but they haven't bought anything. And I used to send weekly follow-ups to them if they gave me an ounce of hope. If my feedback was, they've totally crossed this one off the list, it's the kitchen's too small and they could never live in that house, I'm not going to follow up too much. But if they say you're number 2 on the list, you bet your ass I'm following up with that realtor all the time. But as far as back to the subject matter, it's been a month, nothing's happened. You told me you want to sell in 3 months. Has your motivation or timeline changed? Now, what you're doing is you're basically getting them to agree with the conversation you already had, and then you're bringing it to them. We don't have 90 days anymore to get that done. We got 60. We got 60. We might need to change this if we're going to hit that timeline. And the motivation is we really want to get into a house up in South Carolina to be near our daughter, right? Present the data, tell them what it means, okay? Don't tell them what it means, show them what it means so that they can come to this on their own. Connect to their goals. What does that mean? Well, first off, the goal of every seller is to find what? A buyer, right?
Yeah.
That's their goal. So that's the main goal. But the other part is the timing and motivation. I want to be back near the kids for Christmas. That's a motivation. I want to be there before Thanksgiving if I can, but definitely by Christmas. I really think that if we were to adjust the value proposition by having a listing price of $399, I really think that would give us our best chance to make sure that you're exactly where you want to be on Christmas Day. Connect it. Okay, because they're hearing, I really want you to lower the price by a lot because my wife and I are going to Hawaii next year and I need to have your commission check in the vacation account. That's what they're hearing. So connect it to them. Tell them why they want to do it. What's in it for them? Permission-based approach. I talk about this all the time. Now you can kind of tell why I like this particular coaching group. Would it be okay if I shared what I'm seeing in the market and some recommendations for how we might adjust our strategy? Instead of getting yelled at for, I can't believe you're coming to me with a price decrease. They're not going to say that if you ask their permission to tell them about what you see, right? I go a little, me, I always talk a little hyperbolic. And I say things like, hey, Jill, I'm really enjoying being your listing agent. And I kind of consider you a friend, but if it's okay with you, I'd like to step out of that role for just a minute and just be bland realtor and go over some things because I think you need to hear them. Is that okay? Permission-based approach. Don't just throw it at them. Reinforcing confidentiality. Okay. Well, I'd be willing to take a $400,000 offer, but I still want to leave some room for negotiation. How about we reduce to 450? You know, listen, whatever you'll take, I'm going to keep that to myself. Okay? It's nobody's business what you're willing to take. You have my utmost confidentiality on that. I mean, I can't hide the fact there's a leak in your roof if there was one.
Right.
But as far as our strategy and tactics, that's just me and you. Nobody ever gets that information. Then they might open up with you a little bit. Your role is to recommend based on data and market conditions, present the options clearly and objectively, explain the consequences of different choices. Where have we heard this before? My job's to tell you, if you list at this, this will probably happen. If you list at this will probably happen. Would you rather have to reduce your price down to $375 a year from now to get a buyer? Or 350, or would you rather just sell it for $399 and get where you want to be for Christmas? Avoid pressuring or convincing. Okay? Don't tell them why they're wrong. Right? Lead them to agreeing with you, and then they can be right because you're right. Don't tell them you're right. Get them on your side, and then they'll know you're right. If they agree with you, they'll think you're right. Their role is to make the decisions, decide if they're willing to make changes, share any additional constraints or concerns. If you didn't ask, we actually had one recently. Nobody bothered to ask. We can't go down that far because it wouldn't be enough to pay off the mortgage. Oh, how much is your mortgage? By the way, you should be asking that question 3 months into a listing. You should have at least a very strong idea of that as you're leaving the listing appointment or before. They can ask questions about the implications of making changes or not, but in the end, they get to make the final decision. It's agent plus seller versus the market. It's not agent versus seller. Stress the teamwork. I am on Team Jill. Okay. No matter what we do, I am on Team Jill. My job is to give you options, to give you all the information, to give you whatever benefit I can give you from my experience and my knowledge. But in the end, you're going to be making all the final decisions. Right? I'm on your team. Whatever you decide, I'm going to back your play. This talks about handling objections by having conversations with other realtors. What if they say this? What if they say that? To kind of practice staying calm, talking about everything rationally. Well, if I here's an objection they give you right away. If I come down to $399, they're just going to offer me $350. What do I always say? You've heard me say it. I always say, well, listen, if you get offered $350 for the very first time since we put the sign in your yard, we're going to have a stack of paper with a real person's name on it and an amount of money and your address. Okay. So I can actually have a negotiation, not be prepared for a negotiation that never happens. So I would much rather tell 5 offers of $350, it's $299 or nothing, or move on. At least I've got somebody who's seen your house and sees themselves living in your house. Okay. So if you're asking me if I need room to negotiate, no, I do not. Because if you put it at 425 and they're not willing to give you 400 and that's what you have to have, what difference does it make what they offer you? They're never going to come up to 400. Okay. And it's not, people don't pay for houses based on what you price them at. You pay based on the value. Record yourself. You can do this. I think that the best way to do this role playing is with ChatGPT. You do the voice one, and you just say, "Hi, I want you to play the part of a seller who overpriced their home by 15%, and I'm coming in trying to get at a minimum a 10% decrease in price." Just set it up, tell it everything you want to tell it about it, and then say, "Okay, go." And they'll start asking you, ChatGPT will start asking you tough questions, and you can answer it. And if you instruct ChatGPT to do this, after you finish answering, ChatGPT will step out of its role as your customer, and they will critique your answer. Maybe you might have want to mention this. Maybe you might have want to mention that. Maybe part of prepping ChatGPT is to give it the link that I gave you to this presentation and let it review how we do things. But don't have the first time you ever do this be in front of a customer you desperately need to reduce their price. Turn potentially confrontational conversations into collaborative brainstorming sessions. That's the role. If you are truly on Team Jill, when you go over to Jill's house, it's you and Jill against the market. What do we do? It's not you against Jill. Set that up. Make sure Jill's on the same page. I'm saying Jill because she's the only one still here. If they say no to the reduction, I understand your position on the price. Since we're approaching the end of the listing agreement, would you be open to extending the contract instead? Listen, that's where I come in and I start saying things like, well, my wife's going to make me work till I'm 70. So as long as we get this thing done in the next 7 years, I'm okay. I'm on Team Jill. If this is your decision, I'll back your play. But in fairness, our contract expires at the end of September. If we're not going to reduce the price, I have little or no chance to get this done for you. I hope I'm wrong. But can we go ahead and talk about extending the listing? Because with all this time and effort and money I put into this, I'd like to think you were going to give me a fair shot to finish the job for you and actually get some of my money back and maybe a little for the bride. So sometimes you can't get what you came there for, but you can get something. Well, we've only been on the market for a month, and it's possible that just a buyer hasn't shown up in that month. So I'd like to give it a little more time. The way to get over that is, okay, I understand you're not comfortable with the price adjustment today, but when would you consider making this change if we don't see significant interest going forward? I don't know. Well, what are we talking about? We talking about a month? We talking about 3 years? What are we talking about? That's how I talk to people. What I just did, didn't do it by accident or as a laugh line. I gave them 2 choices. One of them was reasonable. One of them was ridiculous. To be honest with you, I'm more likely, I just kind of riff sometimes. I got all this stuff in my head. It just comes out. But a better way to approach that is, what are we talking about? A couple of weeks, in a month, in 3 years? So you give them a ridiculous choice. Which one are they going to pick? They're going to pick a month. They're going to pick the one in the middle, right? Month. Okay, great. Let me go ahead and pull your phone out. Sketch. You've got something in your Google for today, right? You're meeting with the Johnsons or the Welkers in this case. You're meeting with the Welkers. Just take that thing, click on edit, move it forward a month, and okay, you're in the books. We'll meet back here exactly a month from today. But hopefully by then we can all just sit around, drink wine, and laugh about how you sold the house already. I didn't come here to get you to do anything. I got here to take a look at our plan, see if we need to adjust it. We did adjust it. We said, let's leave it the way it is for now, but let's revisit that in a month. We've changed our plan. We have a date certain where we're going to look at that. That's great. Okay. If you change your mind between now and then, we can speed the process up, but I won't bother you with that until then, okay? And again, please don't forget, Jill, I want to sell your house for $2 million because I work on commission, okay? Again, not only am I as a person on Team Jill, but as a business, I'm on Team Jill. I only get paid if you're successful. So there's nothing in it for me to drop your price too low, okay? Develop a consistent habit. Review all your active listings every Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, or maybe you do it Wednesday and Sunday. Okay. It's not that hard to do because most times when you review a half a dozen listings, you're only going to have to take action on one of them. And maybe the other five won't need action until the next week or the next week or the next week. And maybe by the time they need action, they already sold. They don't need action anymore. It's a fluid situation, but you've got to develop a habit of sitting down on, in the morning in that prep time I always talked about where you're going over your daily schedule and making sure that all your pendings are heading towards close with no roadblocks today. Nothing I got to do on my 4 closings today. Okay. And you do it again the next day. And the next day, nothing I got to do on these 3, but this one, I've got to make a phone call to the lender. Type in your calendar or in your to-do list for the day, whatever it is. But then you've finished with your escrow stuff because the only thing you actually need to do is just going to pop up on your phone at some point in the day and you can get it done. And maybe you remembered it before it pops up on your phone. And when it pops on your phone, you just check it off. But you got to develop a habit or things start sliding. I'll get to those tomorrow. I'll get to those tomorrow. I'll get to those tomorrow. On the 4th day, one of your customer calls with the dreaded question. I haven't heard from you in a week. What the hell's going on? You don't want that call. You don't want that call. Maybe you text them or maybe you leave them a message or maybe you call them out of the blue and say something like, hey, I was just reviewing your listing. And 2 things. Number one, I wanted to tell you that no account scumbag realtor, John Smith, still hasn't gotten back to me with any kind of feedback. But I can tell you that his buyer hasn't bought anything yet. I did look in the neighborhood, make sure. But the other thing I wanted to tell you was I noticed that we haven't actually had another showing since then. So it's been about 2 weeks. I don't think it's panic time. I'll look at it again in a week. And if we still haven't seen anything, then maybe we need to have a talk. You're not going to get a call from that person going, what in the hell's going on? If you get a call from that person, be like, you know what? I hear what you're saying, but why don't we have that talk now? But you're in control, not them. Because I'm telling you, when you're out showing a home with a customer and you get one of them irate listing calls, ruin your whole day. Calculate the potential commission for each property. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of things at the end of this meeting to show you what I mean by that. Schedule follow-ups based on market data. You have to analyze where you sit with a listing customer from the day you write the listing, because you might write the listing and go, we're listing this at 475, even though I told them that their Goldilocks price is 399. Set a goal to get them down within 30 days to at least 425, whatever it is, make a plan. Look at it weekly, decide where you are in your plan, decide if you need to move things forward or if something can wait. Always get to them before they get to you. Proactive communication. If they say everybody wants to feel like they're in control, not sellers. They want to know you're in control. The reason they try to take over is they don't think you're in control and they think somebody has to be. Extensions 30 days prior to expiration is the last day in the world that you would ever want to go after somebody for an extension of the listing. Don't wait anymore, okay? The awful day is the day it actually expires and the whole world descends upon your seller. But I didn't really wait for that. If a listing came online today and I saw it in my hot sheet, and I'm like, why didn't I get that listing? You know, the first thing I did, copied the address, put it into a calendar item exactly 6 months from the day it came on. And then I put a reminder in for 1 week before. And if I had to, I would send a postcard out to the entire neighborhood so that they wouldn't think I was directly marketing for that listing. I never said that. Please, this tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. But I used to be that organized.
It's pretty good, actually.
When you meet with them, have the extension paperwork with you all the time. In your folder for that customer, no matter what you're talking about, you should have a listing modification in the folder, ready to be signed. We've been on the market too long. Well, why don't we, if you think that, why don't we deploy what we call our refresh marketing plan? What we would do is we would actually go ahead and we could withdraw the listing from MLS now, wait for 61 days and relaunch it. We would have a new MLS number and it would have a new days on market listing. Although with the internet, you need to know that people can still figure out how long you've been consecutively selling, but the number that 80% of the people focus on is the days on the market. So if you went onto Zillow and saw your listing after we relaunched it, it would say 6 days on Zillow, not 186 days on Zillow. Okay. We'll change around the photography. We'll change around the thing. We'll have a relaunch. I have a whole plan for this. Well, how would we work that out? We would just take it off the market and then you come back to me in 2 months. No, in order to do this with the best chance for you, what we would do is we would sign a new listing agreement on the day we took it off. And we would put a note in there that we're not going to put it on MLS for 61 days. But for those 61 days, I can at least market it to the buyers who come through my office. Does that make sense? So this weighs around everything. I'm considering another agent. Can I ask what I did wrong? Well, the house hasn't sold. Okay. Well, we reduced the price once. We've actually had more showings from that. We still haven't got an offer. Is there something about my photography or about the public remarks, my attention to your listing, anything like that? No, I just think it's time to get a new guy. Okay. And then you deal with that. Okay. You'll get used to those things and have a response ready. Power of practice. We've already talked about that a little bit. Okay. Why these skills matter now more than ever. I already told you that. The guys who made money between 2008 and 2012 were guys like me. The guys who knew what was going on, knew how to best service their customer, were willing to take you son of a bitch, we put my house on the market for too little money. That's why it sold in a week. We could have put it on for what you wanted to, and it could have sold in 3 years. Like this guy. See this guy down the street from you? He's been on the market for 941 days. He started out here and he's down to here. The only problem is the market's right here. And he's chased it all the way down. But you got to have the confidence that you're doing it right, or you're not going to be able to look a guy in the eye and go, no. There's only going to be 4 people buy a house in your neighborhood in the next 6 months, and you got the very first one here. If you ask me, that's a screaming success. Market evolution. The days of easy sales with minimal negotiations are gone. Today's market is going to demand advanced communication skills, strategic pricing approaches, the kind of training I'm giving you. And rather than get a face on you like the girl there in the right-hand picture, you should be smiling like the guy in the left-hand picture, because the more demanding it is, the more communications that are needed, the more strategic pricing approaches are required, the better it is for us, because we're so much better than everybody else. All right. So we got that going. And then the last thing I wanted to show you, just so you see that you have it, I won't belabor it because this is the longest recording ever. Okay. So that's the video. That's the spreadsheet we just went over. There's a little bit of background about how things work. Again, original list price, the last list price when they actually bought it. Okay. So you see this one was 159.9. They brought it down to 129.9. And within 4 days, it went under contract for 120. But the guy with 120 was not going to come and see the house when they were asking 160. He didn't feel like they could. Okay. Now, I went ahead and made these two for you for funnels. Okay. So let's take a peek at this. This isn't a big spreadsheet. I actually, when I'm doing stuff on AI, you can actually publish it to the web and give it a link. Okay. But I want you to think about this. Let's say that all of you guys produced 100 marketing leads for listings over the course of a year, which isn't as hard as you think. You get 100 leads on Facebook for probably a $200 buy. And we're going to start to do more of this as we get better at it. I'll provide a lot more of these leads. Now, those kind of leads don't immediately convert, okay? But when you get a lead from Mr. and Mrs. Johnson who live at 123 Main Street, your hometown, USA, you have a homeowner, you have his contact information. He's going to sell that home one day. So if you stay with him, you can get a great conversion ratio. And we have the tools for it. The KV Core is perfect for long-term listing nurturing. But for this purpose, what I wanted to say was we took an example. Everybody gets 100 marketing leads, and everybody gets, over the course of the year, 3 office leads, Berkshire Hathaway referrals, walk-ins, whatever that might be. Everybody gets a chance at 3 listing appointments from that. And here's where the rates, the funnel rates matter. Okay, so this guy gets 100 leads, gets an appointment from 5 of them. He gets 3 office leads, so he's got 8 total appointments. He goes and gives 8 listing presentations, and he gets 3 listings out of it. He sells 60% of his listings on the whole. Okay, I'm intentionally pick numbers lower than what they should be. This is about the average, a 10% conversion rate over the course of a year on listing leads. This is even for everybody. Everybody gets the same amount of appointments, we'll say, for our example. But this guy, when he goes and sits down in the living room, 6 out of 10 of those people sign a contract with him. And when he gets a list, and when he gets 10 listings, he sells 8 of them, not 6. So he gets paid on 8 of his 10 deals, right? Now, an excellent agent is going to be just that much better. He's going to get 15 appointments out of 100 leads. Plus, again, this is all equal, 3 appointments, but he just gets more conversion out of it. My numbers were based, I don't know what my numbers were here because I did a lot of referrals by the time I actually, the part I can remember most. But if I sat at a listing appointment, I would win. I've done like 400 listings, sold 400 listings. And I probably, to get those 400 listings, I probably went on 405 listing appointments. Okay. And there was a couple that I didn't sell. I mean, I probably had about 10 or 12 I didn't sell over that time period too. So a few more, but I mean, if I got in the door, I won. but I had a great presentation. Now, part of my great presentation was the fact I didn't have a presentation. I had a little spreadsheet that a third grader could understand. I had a big stack of paperwork that I printed out off of, I forget the name of the software. And I would put that to the side and I go, listen, I go, there's a lot of people who are going to bring in these large marketing plans. They're not their marketing plans. They come off of software they bought for $29.99. They plug your address in and it makes it look like they just spent 4.5 years preparing your marketing proposal. All they did was type in your address and hit print. Okay. But I know some people are like, well, I'm going to hire the guy with the biggest, thickest marketing plan. I brought mine. Okay. If you want me to fire it into my shredder back at the office, I'll be happy to take it with me when I leave. I want to talk to you like you're just a normal person, like you are. Here's the numbers. That was my pitch. The part of my pitch you can't duplicate was I only really went to listing appointments. I would say 92% of my listing appointments were Citrus Hills address. That's the only place I really wanted to sell, and I had enough customers I didn't have to expand my range. And I would say the following, because it was true. There is nobody living on the planet Earth who knows more about Citrus Hills real estate than the guy sitting in your living room right now. Maybe somebody's got as much knowledge, but nobody's got more. I'm currently sitting at #1 in Citrus Hills for resales, but I want to make clear that I'm not just #1. I'm selling 4.5 times more than #2. I'm currently handling 30% of non-Terra Vista Citrus Hills business for the entire county. This is what I do. If your home was in Sugar Mill Woods, I'd have to tell you what all the other agents are going to tell you. I'm going to work really hard. I have the connections, I have the buyers, I have the track record. Okay, I had all that. You can't necessarily go with that, but you can have the coolest presentation ever, and I can help you make it. But this guy gets 8 out of 10 of the appointments to sign a listing agreement, and he sells 95%. Okay, I was 97.3% of my listings sold eventually. So, I mean, what does that mean? That means if you write $100,000 worth of listings, someday you will make $97,300 from them because they're going to sell. But this is how you track your business. So what is the difference of doing, this guy's doing 10, this guy's doing half of that, this guy's doing half again more. We pretty much kept that going through. What happens when you're all done? The poor agent in the course of a year makes 10 grand off of listings. The average agent makes 40. The excellent agent makes 85. And they all started out with 100 leads and 3 appointments. They all started out with exact same materials. And based on their effectiveness at this, look at the difference in income. 8.7 times what the poor agent makes. 2.25 times what the average agent makes. $75,000 more than the poor agent makes with the same materials. There's a line from Glenn Ross. I always quote that in my meetings, where the guy goes, I could go out there tonight with the materials you have and make myself $15,000. Can you? Can you? And that's the mean, cocky way of saying it. But when you got all your ducks in a row and you got the system down, you can take an average amount of material and create a lot of money out of it. So you want to think about that. Lead conversion, excellent agents have better qualification systems, stronger follow-up processes, and build more trust in initial conversation. You know what the coolest part of this is? If you were to take these materials and put 14 listings up, you are much more likely than this guy to say, so you want to sell your $300,000 house for $500,000? You're a lot more likely to say it was nice meeting you. This guy might write that damn listing. Okay, and the other one, just to be quick, because I know this is going on forever, but I only got, and Jill's been very patient, so I only got Jill here. So think I can get away with a couple more minutes. I took this and I just want to get down to however you get your appointments, however you get your leads, and again, first off, anybody who sold 50 homes, you've got 50 leads, right? And of those 50, how many people out of 50 do you think are going to list a home in any given year?
Three.
People go, on average, sell their house every 12 years. So it'd be probably about 4 and a little. But for every 50 people you handle as a buyer, you should be able to get 4 listings one day, any given year. You should be able to get, maybe you only get 2 of those 4, okay? But you get them every year. And maybe by the next year, you got 100 customers in there. Now you get 4 out of that, right? It's all a numbers game. This one talks about listing conversion mastery. So let's say that everybody on this group gets 15 listing appointments. So it doesn't matter how good you are with leads. It doesn't matter how many referrals you get. All 3 of the poor, the average, and the excellent agent all get 15 listing appointments, 15 turns at the plate. The poor agent gets 4 listings out of it. Where am I now? Hold on. Oh, the poor agent gets 6 listings out of his 15. The average agent gets 9, and the excellent agent gets 12. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, wait a minute, I've been in competition about 10 times, and I think I only got 4 of them. Are you saying I'm poor? No. You had competition 10 times, you probably had 30 appointments. Because at least half of the appointments you have, they're not looking at anybody else. You just don't remember those. You only remember the ones where you were the only, where you had to fight like hell to get the listing and tell them why you were better than the schmuck who was coming in the next day. But more than half the listings are given, there's only one appointment. They pick the agent before you've ever even shown them the stuff, if we're being honest. Okay. So anyway, we're already got a disparity here at 40, 60, and 80%. The poor agents only got 6 listings and make it to MLS. The average guy's got 9. Excellent agent's already got 12 pieces of product he can sell, right? And make money off of. And it would stand to reason that excellent agent is also good at making sure the price is right, making sure that all the listing things are covered, making sure that he maintains his relationship with the seller to make sure that he gets to hold on to that listing long enough to actually cash a commission check. So with 95% of his property sold, he gets 11 checks. The average guy gets 7 and the poor guy gets 4. Look at that difference. That's not even taking into account who's better at getting appointments from leads, right? Look at that difference. So that when people talk about a sales funnel, all of these metrics matter because the only thing that really matters to you is this number, right? That's the number you're pushing for. But in order to get to this number and not this number, and God forbid, not that number, these are the metrics. How good am I at a listing appointment? How good is my presentation? Have I covered all the bases? Have I differentiated myself from out there? Okay. How am I at pricing the home? How am I at marketing the home? How am I at maintaining my relationship with the seller so that I make sure that my sign's still the one out front when the pending goes on, right? That's what matters. First, you got to get into the door, but what you do getting in that door matters a lot. Okay. So you have those things at your disposal now. And this long, I've been talking now or listening for 3 hours and 41 minutes between all these meetings, these 3 training meetings. But this is important stuff, and I hope you got a lot out of it. And I shall see you all tomorrow when Russell has to do all the talking. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Mark.